everyone. Welcome back to Beyond Evolution, where we help you navigate AI's impact on humanity. I'm Jess, your co-host, here with Mario, and our mission at Beyond Evolution is to help you reclaim your agency and thrive in a tech-driven world, to make the most of what AI can offer without losing sight of what truly makes us human. Today we're joined by Neil Sahota, an IBM Master Inventor and United Nations advisor who co-founded UN's AI for Good initiatives. He's the author of Own the AI Revolution and has over 20 years of experience guiding innovations in sectors from healthcare to government. His work is all about using AI to build resilience, empathy, and positive change. We're excited to explore how we can design technology to uplift humanity and all learn to cope a little bit better with all the changes that AI is bringing to this world. Welcome, Neil, to Beyond Evolution.
Thanks for having me on, Jess and Mario.
He's also just a really good human being, just so everyone knows. On top of all that whole mouthful of achievements and incredible. Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Hopping into the episode, we'll start with a mindful moment that Mario will lead through, and then we'll go more into learning more about Neil and all his adventures.
Right. So before we get into the chaos and all the craziness of our world today, we like to just pause and take a minute. And honestly, this is really a gift to our listeners, our guests, to ourselves, to really intentionally influx just a moment of being, just kind of being here together, arriving together. So that's really the goal of the next few minutes. We definitely encourage our guests to join if you'd like. And of course, if you're driving or, listening to this anywhere where it's unsafe to close your eyes or relax for a few minutes, just skip forward about 3 minutes and we'll meet you at the start of the conversation. Okay, we'll start with some deep breaths. Pretty simple deep breaths in through the nose, and we'll hold at the top at your own pace and release through your mouth. And just kind of want to imagine when you release the air that you're just kind of releasing all of the stress, tension, or worries or thoughts, whatever you kind of brought here today to this episode or this recording, just release those on the out breaths. So just take a few of those at your own pace and really just at your own time and your own pace, you can close your eyes. And really just to begin, we're going to focus our attention on our breath as it returns to its normal state, just breathing in and out through the nose. The more we focus on this single point, the more we'll start to feel our body slow down and relax. If any thoughts come in, just let them come and let them go as gently as they arrived, and return to your breath. And we'll just continue this for about 2.5 minutes, and I'll bring you out when we're ready. So just enjoy your time and our time arriving here together. Okay, when you're ready, start to kind of come back into your body, open your eyes at your own pace, and we'll get started.
Awesome.
By the way, I think it's hilarious that we bring just like the most incredible people on the show, and then we just have them sit here for a couple of minutes.
Right? In silence.
But it's I don't know, it's like counter to what you would think for this type of show. So I love it, and I hope you enjoyed it.
It's relaxing.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So Neil, to start, tell us about, yourself and your journey with AI. What drew your focus to AI in itself and kind of the human aspect of technology?
Well, it started like probably a lot of things, an accident. I never planned to go in AI, and even a lot of the work I was doing weren't calling it AI. It was just like 20 years ago, business intelligence had kind of exploded on the scene. We had new tools to collect a lot of data and store it, and we could make these nice looking reports. But I would hear from so many people that it's amazing what computers are telling us. It just got me thinking, like, they're not really doing that, but could they? Could a machine look at information and draw insight? And sent me down a path I was calling enterprise intelligence. And so, I was working on some of this stuff, and that will lay the foundation of what we call machine learning. And then, I crossed paths with a few people. Somebody was working on like natural language processing, and someone else was working on another kind of aspect, and, the synergy between it and, IBM activating a secret project called Watson kind of brought all the jigsaw puzzle pieces together. And even then, we weren't calling it AI. But we recognized really quickly that if you have a computer that can effectively mimic human thinking, it's going to be a freak out moment for a lot of people. And, it's no secret today that as we were doing this work, we were actually getting death threats from people. They're saying, like, you guys are inventing Skynet. It's going to conquer the world, eradicate humanity. And so, we were very sensitive to that. And so we were trying to make it as de-anthropomorphized as possible, least human-like as possible, make it very passive, a lot of safeguards, guardrails, all these things that we talk about today. And we did the Jeopardy challenge. That was a huge success. A lot of the feedback we got, we really started rolling out the work, like in healthcare and working with like SoftBank and the robots. Went on our way for herky jerky motion, robot voice, all these things, and people were just like, I'll give make it sound more like a human and move more like a human. That would make us more comfortable. And that was kind of the really epiphany moments we had. It was like, really? They wanted to be more human like? We thought that would freak everyone out. And that kind of set down the path of one, well, not only can we do that, but then can we make the interaction more human like? Even though like machines can't feel emotions, could they learn to detect them in people and respond accordingly based on their mood? And that kind of formed the basis we call artificial empathy today. But throughout this whole journey, I've always been kind of focused on the people aspect, because AI, like all technology, is just a tool. So how we choose to wield it. And particularly in Western culture, we're wired for negative risks, threats, abilities, what's going to go wrong. As a result, we don't think about the opportunities, the positive risks, where we could use it to actually help people. And so that laid the basis for AI for Good, my work with the United Nations. Because just one thing I've learned, Jess and Mario, is that bad actors are going to do bad things, but good actors need a nudge.
Good actors what?
Need a nudge.
Need a nudge.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think this whole world of AI right now is like, it's very, I don't know, we're kind of in limbo of like where it's headed, right? And I think there's opportunity, as you said, to do good with it. There's also kind of views on it where people see it as a negative thing. But I think we've talked about it a lot on this podcast. We kind of want to steer people in that positive direction. How can we like partner with it the best possible way? But yeah, it's very interesting that you kind of work with that. You worked with IBM and kind of went from more techie to like more human-like. So that's an interesting kind of shift right there. I guess like, was there a shift that you saw, or was it just like different opinions that you've heard?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not so sure, at least for myself, it was a shift. It was, I grew up in New York, and not exactly the nicest neighborhood. So there's a strong sense of community and looking after each other, and I've really taken that everywhere I went. I was raised by parents who really believed in like give back, and I think that's kind of just wired me. I kind of look for those opportunities. But I also get the silo focus, right? You're so heads down on stuff because like some of my colleagues, for someone was the technology, and someone was kind of the glamour moment if we could actually make this happen. And I'm not trying to espouse good or bad for any of those things, but they always say it takes a village. We get so into the technology, we forget the people aspect, right? Most of life and most of change, we forget the people. I hate to say it that way. People, process, technology, you change one of them, it impacts the other two.
Mm-hmm.
And so even things that we know are good for us, right? We discount the organizational change management to get all kind of nerdy on the management consulting stuff about change adoption. Like during the pandemic, I'm trying to work on the vaccines and helping out things like the COVAX program and all that. We always knew that there'd be some percentage of the population that just wouldn't take the vaccine. But we always thought it'd be a small percentage because isn't it a powerful value proposition? You'll get protection, get in some of the lockdowns, some of these things. Nobody would have guessed that nearly 30% of the global population would refuse the vaccine. Impacting herd immunity, all these things, you only get into the details, but it's one of those things where it's like we could have done a much better job of trying to figure out the WIFM, what's in it for me for the various segments, and knock that number down a lot. But we were so focused on, the process, the technology of getting a vaccine safely developed and out to the people, we forgot about the people.
Yeah, I never heard of that saying, people process technology. Well, maybe I heard that three, but I never understood if you change one, the other two are affected. I think that's a very interesting kind of viewpoint on it. Yeah, I think, and especially with this technology that's coming out, I think we need to be focusing on all three. If we change one, the other twos are gonna hurt. So I don't know. I think it's definitely interesting. Okay, let's talk about artificial empathy. So it says, or the question I have is, you pioneered research into artificial empathy over a decade ago. What sparked that idea and how has it evolved since?
So it really started with just the way, how do we interact with machines, right? Most of us are probably still old enough to remember the Google search engine, and it was all about keywords, right? So you learn to write keywords and stuff. But AI was meant to be more conversational. I mean, one of the main components of it is that you can talk to it like it's a human being. And so when we talk to human beings, it's just, I'm not spitting out a bunch of keywords. I'm just not just asking you a question expecting an answer. There's tone, there's body language, all these other things, and the way we even phrase things, like you know, are you all right, or are you all right? Subtle clues that need to get picked up made us realize, me in particular, that to be effective with that kind of communication, AI has to understand not just the kinesiology and the body language, but the emotional state of that person. So, we always think about, how can you understand emotions if you don't feel emotions? And so, we started looking at it, and there's been a lot of research into this, and there are clues, right? There are physical clues to our emotional state. There's word choice, neurolinguistics, that reveal our emotional state, the tone of our voice also. And those are things we can actually teach the machine. So even though it can't feel emotions, it can actually understand the emotional state of a person it's talking to. And that makes the conversation, makes the interaction feel more natural for the person. Now, here's the thing that surprised pretty much everybody. I know I'm going to freak some people out by saying this. It was benchmarked. AI is much better at reading the emotional state of a human being than another person is, right?
I could see that. Much better than me, for sure.
Well, Mario, there's like 2,000 points on your face alone that reveal your emotional state. The best human can watch maybe 7 to 12 of them in real time. The AI can see all 2,000 of them, right? And it's also analyzing your word choice. It's also analyzing the tone of your voice, other body movements or indicators. So it's processing a lot more information. The other thing is, it has laser-like focus on you. So even like we're talking here right now, you might be wondering, hey, what was that noise in the background? Or, I wonder what I'm going to do for dinner tonight? Or, where are the kids right now? Or you might be thinking about what you want to say back. AI doesn't do any of those things. It's really just listening and looking for those indicators. And so as a result, it's actually far better at understanding even subtle shifts in an emotional state. They look like customer service reps. You might have somebody on the phone, and initially they're like, oh yeah, you have this problem. They're kind of okay about it, but then maybe the process is taking too long, or they don't have some of the information. The frustration starts to build, but the AI can pick up as soon as it starts building up, even a subtle type of change. There's a human CSR. You might be 4 minutes into the conversation before you realize, oh, they sound mighty angry with me now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's super interesting to hear about. Like, I never really thought about AI being able to pick up emotional and like tone cues and I guess body language cues. But I think, when I've talked to like ChatGPT on like voice mode, like they know exactly kind of where I'm coming from in terms of how I'm speaking to it. So I just think, yeah, and then kind of comparing it to a person as well. It's interesting to see or hear that it knows a lot better than another human being can tell. How has that like evolved, and like what do you use artificial empathy right now for? Like, what is it helpful in doing?
Some good things and some bad things. Let's start out with the good, and we'll migrate to the bad. So it's made kind of conversational AI more natural, right? You see a lot of people even saying like, well, hey, thanks, ChatGPT, or good morning, Claude, right? It makes them feel more natural. The other thing is that, teaching the AI, not just now the emotional cues, but teaching things about psychology and some of these other things. The AI, in as little as 100 words, can actually deconstruct your psychographic profile. So it can actually score you across the 56 personality traits. You can actually decipher things like your hobbies, your interests. And so it kind of knows better where to kind of focus, like, okay, I know that Jess is going to care more about these kinds of details, or Mario's going to hear more about the fun side of this idea, right? So it helps create more of that better kind of aligned focus in terms of what your information you're looking for, right? Here's the bad. Because it knows these things, you look at some digital media feeds, social media feeds today, algorithms are so good at that now, is it's created an echo chamber. So it starts just pumping you stuff you're already interested in. And so you don't really get exposed to different opinions, different thoughts as much anymore. So that's why when you hear some of these people with seem like kind of outlandish ideas, for example. Like, how can they be talking about this? Well, in their bubble world, unfortunately, we all have our own bubble world. It feels like to them, because they get so much content around that 100 million people think the same way I think about this idea. And so we have, I think, more polarization, less acceptance of different ideas. And no matter how extreme they might get, AI knows that it's just feeding you more and more of that, right? It's not making a judgment call if that's right or wrong. And that's, part of the challenge that we have. It's just, you look at some of the things that are happening, like school shootings. Part of the belief now is, fortunately, some of these students feel like that idea is not that far out there, because their information feeds seem to unfortunately support that type of thinking.
Yeah, yeah. I can see both sides to it. I think like it can be helpful in terms of like helping with people, communicating with the AI. But if it's used in social media algorithms or ways to kind of keep you stuck in the same mindset, which it has been, I can definitely see that there's some drawbacks to it. And I totally understand like the echo chamber side of things. I think it's really truly like dividing the world up in so many different ways, and that's just solely on a technology, technological algorithm. So yeah, it's definitely, yeah. Hopefully we can kind of shift the world in the right direction now that we understand kind of where we brought it. Hopefully we can merge it back together and bring it back forward.
Absolutely, but good actors need a nudge.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's why we're here talking about this. Yeah, awesome.
We're the nudgers. We're the ones
There
giving
we
the
go.
nudge to the
Yeah,
world.
we're the nudgers. We are the good actors too. I think so. All right. Can we talk about, let's talk about UN's AI for Good initiatives. Can you talk a little bit more about that, and kind of how that started? What is it all about?
Yeah, so it started about 10 years ago now, but there was a big conference. I was asked to come and speak about AI. The world leaders are going to be there, UN ambassadors. At the time, they were figuring out the Sustainable Development Goals and planning to vote on them. But I was asked to give a speech about AI because it was still relatively new and people were still kind of like, what is this? What do we have to worry about? But I was told that most of the world leaders think AI is Terminator time, that it is going to eradicate humanity. So there was no pressure. I gave a more optimistic speech, but I didn't talk so much about what is AI. I talked more about how AI is already being used in public service. And I talked about how AI could be used to support the Sustainable Development Goals. And my speech was actually very well received. And at the reception, the Secretary General, Angela Merkel, other people came up to me and kind of applauded me. But they were very honest in saying, like, we actually never thought about using AI. We had to worry about trying to protect against it, regulations, policies, But it never dawned on us that we could probably use this to, help champion some of our goals in the UN. And the Secretary General wanted to figure something out. And so they asked for, my help. And I'm thinking, like, okay, all honesty, it's probably a political thing. I'll probably meet with a few people and we'll form some committee. It'll kind of die on the vine, right? No, very heavily involved right from the outset, talked about all these things. And we realized this can't be a bunch of talking heads. It can't be a bunch of just academic papers. You need to try and do something tactical. And so we formed AI for Good, which is actually a solutions-focused initiative where we actually do projects around the Sustainable Development Goals. And so the goal is to actually create useful things that can be used at a global level. So we're not going to change, we're not going to achieve zero hunger with one or two projects. We're not going to solve climate change with a couple of projects, but we wanted to build an ecosystem, a community of people that would, are willing to bring the problems forward, volunteer their time or expertise or equipment or whatever it might be to do some of these small things. And from that, that's how AI for Good got started. And so we started looking at projects. We had a few, started doing them, rolling them out. You could see the impact, and the community kept growing and growing and growing to the point now where we've completed over 500 projects in the last seven years, and I think we've turned 81 active projects today, and we've impacted, I think it's 1.4 billion people.
That's
Great
amazing.
work. Yeah, that's awesome. What have you learned? Like, what's your biggest takeaway from being a part of those projects? Like, what do you kind of see that most people who wouldn't be in your shoes?
It's an interesting question, Mario. I don't know if other people would see this or not, but since no one else ever said it before I did, I'm going to go with that, which is local problems have global solutions. So, like, I remember there was this, small team in Korea. They were passionate about trying to help people that are audioly impaired. You can't hear well or you're deaf. And their initial idea was, look, you're in a train station or a metro or subway or some public place. Something happens, fire, something like that, earthquake. You hear the sirens, you see the klaxons, and they start telling you like over the loudspeaker, go to this area, or this is what's happening, do this. But if you're hearing impaired, you don't know what's going on, right? And so their idea was they wanted to partner, they wanted to use AI and beacon technology, that if something like happened, you have a special app that would get triggered by that, and then you can actually see what's being said. You can actually read what's being said, and if there's an evacuation, you can automatically get maps and show you how to get out. So you're not just kind of wondering what's happening and hoping someone can help you out. And two of the people got this because they were deaf. And it's not something that you normally think about. I'm like, wow, that's actually very powerful. And they started working with the Korean government to roll this out, and got help through AI for Good. You're sitting there, you're thinking like, this is a problem that exists everywhere in the world. This isn't something that you just can do in Korea. We strive for simple infrastructure that could be used anywhere. This is something you can roll out in any part of the world, actually. And so that's what's been happening now. They've been expanding this out to other member nations. So it's just a great example of here's a local problem, even if it's just based on your own experiences, but could have global impact, a global solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great. I appreciate you sharing some of your experience, and I'm excited to see what other work you do in the future. Do you have like set terms at the UN for your position, or like for length of time?
No. I mean, not really. I'm sure if I ever want to step away or reduce, they be happy to accommodate. I mean, it's all volunteer as an advisor. But one thing I've just learned, it can be a little hard to extract yourself, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but when you kind of start something, you own it forever, the old adage. But don't get me wrong, I don't look at it like I'm trapped or anything like that. But I encourage that, you know, new people should be coming in, new fresh ideas should be coming in. I obviously can't experience everything from around the world. I don't have those things. We need to bring those different thoughts and ideas into the play. And so I kind of feel like now I'm more the parental figure, and the next generation has grown up in AI for Good, and they're bringing more value that way. And I'm sure 5 years I'll be the grandparent. So I'm excited for that.
Nice.
Awesome. Excited
That's
for you.
awesome. Yeah. I just want to comment on just how I just think it's really awesome, honestly, just the United Nations and doing projects around the world, that are helpful in such a global scale, small projects, but they can be, their reach is global. Yeah, and I think it's just so important that people are trying to do things for good and like using this technology and implementing it for the good of humanity. It really like gives me some hope, that we're on the right path. And I truly believe, what you put your attention to, what you focus on is your reality. But I like to see that, we're doing good. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
appreciate that, Jess. I know I appreciate it. It's just it's hard, especially for us older folks, because you grew up in a world that was for profit or nonprofit, right? It's like, why can't you do both? That was a huge mind shift for people, and it's like you look at things like Tom Shoes, for example. It's like you can't both. Social enterprise. We should really try and do more of that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, Mario here, he has a nonprofit as well, which I think is just, it's out of the good of his soul.
Yeah, it's very interesting timing you would say that, because we're looking at kind of switching things up and adding for profit, kind of combining the two into one. So you're inspiring me to do so. I think that's good timing to hear that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's keep moving. The next section we like to call AI in practice, and it seems like you have a lot of incredible, really helpful projects out there. And one of them that we've discovered that you've worked on is called the Cognitive Science Solution Project, which seems like it's meant to help build resilience and coping skills for people. Tell us more, kind of like about that, what it does. When it started, is it still going? How's it going?
It is. So we live in this time of what we call convergence. So we have lots of great science and technology. And so we've taken cognitive science because the way we learn is still rooted in 19th century techniques and practices. There's much better ways for us to actually learn faster, kind of wire our brains and be more sticky. And we've learned that we can actualize some of these learning models through AI and the metaverse. And so we created a platform that we call Future View that was originally designed to help with complex scenario planning, but could also actually help teach skills, kind of soft skills people. And one of the first areas we went into was mental health. And so, it started with actually, you know, Gen Z. Unfortunately, there seems to be quite a few folks that have mental health issues, and understandably so, given the environment we live in. But one of the things we saw was that some Gen Zers, they couldn't even get out of their house to go to like an in-person interview. And it's like, how do you try and help someone like that? And so we're thinking about this with Future View. And so what we did is, you know, you go through like these different scenarios, and so it's run by the AI. And you're in a fully metaverse environment. It doesn't necessarily mean VR. It could be a computer screen or something like that, but it's a fully interactive, immersive 3D environment. And so you wake up the day of your interview, and it looks like your bedroom, like in the real world. You have to make choices like you actually get out of bed, you put on clothes, what kind of clothes, are you going to go to the interview? Maybe you can't get out the door. Are you going to let them know, well, I can't make it? And that's what they would go through. And you can't memorize your way through it because the AI, as you learn things, changes it up, right? So you continue to learn. What we found was you can create these triggering situations in a safe space where they can actually try different things and experiment and see what happens, right? So there's no actual real world repercussions for them. And by doing this, what we saw is their resilience would start building up, right? So if something happened in the real world with one of these trigger points, they were better able to cope with it because they had learned these coping skills in this environment. So for them, it wasn't like that's one of these mandatory educational things or I'm going through this. You're really trying to do something you normally do in your life. And so we've done not just obviously things like helping you go to a in-person interview, combating loneliness, like helping like actually soldiers or other people deal with PTSD, helping people, especially again military people, transition to civilian life, dealing with the loss of a loved one. So we found it to be actually very effective in that regard. The other thing we learned, and this is kind of an unexpected beneficial side effect, is you know, if something does happen in the real world that they haven't experienced, like in Future View or something like that, their ability to deal with it is much faster. They like enter that flow state a lot faster, and they're thinking more creatively about what they could do to handle the situation. So the side effect is actually improved and sustained creative thinking, which is something a lot of people thought you can't teach a person, but we may have actually figured out a way to do that.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. It's like virtual exposure therapy, which is something that, licensed therapists do very regularly to help people. So that seems pretty groundbreaking. Who did you build that with? Did you build that with therapists or how did that come about?
Yeah, so I work with a group of cognitive scientists, and for this particular part, we actually worked with 20 different psychologists, therapists, clinical researchers, several scientists, and I know I'm forgetting one now, and I apologize to them. But I can't think of what they did, but we're trying to look at this from communication. That was what I was, a communication expert. So trying to look at this from a lot of different angles because it's not just pure psychology or therapy. There's other elements to this to make this one real, and two to understand that to develop those coping skills is a mesh of different things that have to happen together.
Right. Wow, great work. Is that through ASCI Labs?
Yeah, it's through ACSI Labs.
Okay. And how is that product delivered? What kind of like platform and how is it?
It's technology agnostic, so it just depends on the way you want to use it. So some people use it through a laptop, through a phone. Some people want VR, so we can be doing that. But we've created a toolkit so you can make your own virtual environment. You can make it look like your bedroom, your house, the actual interview site, digital twin of whatever you want, right? Within reason. You can't like digital twin people or anything like that, but you can create your own avatar. So we just try to make it as simple and straightforward to process. You don't need heavy duty computing power. You don't need GPUs. You don't need crazy Starlink satellite internet. We think about the infrastructure. We make it available for pretty much anyone that has basic infrastructure.
Amazing.
That's super cool, honestly. I mean, I think me and Mario are both very involved in mental health as well. So I think it's very cool that you can immerse yourself in an environment, without actually being there. I think it's a great way to like practice those skills. So that's very genius.
I appreciate it. If you ever want to see a demo of it, I can arrange that for you. Just let me know.
That'd be
Yeah,
awesome. Cool.
absolutely. Let's talk about, I know you have a number of books, at least two that I found out there, but your most recent one is called The AI Activation Code. Tell us more about the message of this book, I guess, without giving away all the good bits, but just, yeah, I'm very, very entrepreneurial. So is Jess. So I'm excited to kind of hear your take on what this book is and how it can help entrepreneurs and leaders.
Yeah, sure. It's a playbook for leaders of organizations. So it's more tactical and helps you more understand one, where are you in your AI journey, and two, what are the right kind of next steps, or how do you figure out the right next steps to move forward. And it's broken across what we call four stages. I should say there's four stages an organization goes through at a very high level. Kind of awareness. I know that AI is out there. Second is adoption. What are some of the tools and stuff I should use, which is where a lot of organizations tend to be today. But they think they're actually in stage three, which is adaption. So you probably have seen the MIT report, or at least heard about it, said that 95% of AI pilots have failed to deliver any kind of value, right? Just pilots, not a full blown project. And so the question I've been getting the last couple of years a lot is, why is that, and how is it my competitors were able to succeed and get value where we couldn't? This is what this book was really, one of the core messages around that is that because you never move from adoption to adaptation. AI is not software; it's a high energy intern. So you
All
have to
right.
teach it your data, your processes, your business goals, or your organizational objectives, whatever it might be, because it's all different for every organization. And that's, sorry, go ahead.
What are the most common obstacles that people run into that prevent them from making that leap?
They think it's software. They think I can buy a box, right? That's what we're used to. I get that, but it's not. You're hiring an intern, right? You hire an intern, they don't know everything, right? They're an intern. You have to teach them, and that's the biggest problem most organizations have. Unless if you can't break away from that software mindset, you will always fail with AI. Period. You've seen it, and that's intellectually we might get that, but in practice, it's a hard change for companies. It's a hard change for nonprofits. Hard change for government agencies.
So that's interesting that you're saying we should treat it like more human, as if it was more human.
Well, that's the key thing because you have a few organizations that are moving now into stage four, which is autonomous. It brings this idea of business consciousness to life, that I can turn my organization into kind of a living entity, that people and machines working together are going to help me understand in real time what's going on, be more proactive, more agile, to these situations. And so in stage four, your AI intern has gone to AI partner. They're now an integral part as much as your key human employees are. That's even bigger kind of mind change for people.
Yeah, I like that. You have anything to add to that, Jess, before I go on to the next one?
Yeah, I think like or at least in the company that I'm working for, we're trying to also adopt AI right now. But I think these projects, we're kind of in that middle stage of like, how do we use it best and how can we really make a difference in the company with this technology? So I see it firsthand, what that's like. But I definitely think, companies they're trying to strive for the growth with AI, but I think we need to take a step back and like not rush to get to somewhere. We need to really truly understand the baseline. How can we use it in the best possible way and then grow from there. So I think that's just one thing that I've been around and been exposed to, been aware of. It is a big hurdle. So hopefully, that I have a feeling, your book will kind of give them a guiding light into, the different steps that they need to take to be successful.
That's the goal with the AI activation code. And I can tell you that actually a nonprofit that I know got the book for all their employees and their board of directors. And at their retreat a couple of weeks ago, they actually helped use this not just for AI, but other things to say, what's our transformation going to be? What are we going to look like in 2032? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we change? How do we adapt our program? What new programs do we need to create impact?
Is that
Exactly.
book more for smaller businesses, startups, or like medium to large size? Is there a specific target market for that?
I mean, I wrote the book with the more of the idea of the SMB, the small and medium sized organization. I mean, in truth, it could be used by anybody, right? But more of the examples and stuff are more relatable for the small to medium sized organizations.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. I'm really excited to get a copy because I know you have experience in helping, founders and entrepreneurs. So I'm excited to take a look and share it with everyone I can.
I appreciate that. Those guys are the innovators, as you know, Mario, Jess. You guys are the innovators.
Yeah, we'll do our
Yep.
best.
Yeah.
No pressure. Coming from
And
Neil Sahota.
another thing that really stuck out to me was like, it's a hard change, right? Like, and people are not the best with change. It's hard for people to change. So my focus and like kind of what I see out of this whole thing is like, how can we help people accept change quicker and easier, I guess. I don't know. It's just a thought that's kind of been like running through my brain over the past couple of months, years or so around this topic. So yeah. Do you have any insight into that?
Yeah, he's actually a good partner for that. We were talking about kind of the psychology and neurolinguistics.
Mm-hmm.
Can actually be a very effective tool to help you figure out how to communicate with different stakeholders, to know what their WIFM is, and then be able to explain in ways they're going to understand the value they can actually see from some of these things. So you can increase the amount of buy-in. But I will warn everybody: you'll never achieve 100%. It's just the hard fact of life. There's always going to be some naysayers, no matter what. So focus on the ones that could be persuaded. You got to talk what's important to them, and we forget that at times. We think about what we think is important. That's not necessarily important to them. So if you want to bring people on board, you got to understand and explain the benefits for them.
Yeah, I realized that in like I was a supervisor in like a past role of mine, and there's definitely people out there that no matter how much you try to coach them, they just don't want to change. But those ones that do show kind of that they are willing to change, you kind of need to understand what motivates them and then kind of bring that forward to help them grow in that way.
100%.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit, still within the same arena of AI in practice. But I know, on our pre-podcast call, you talked about how you had experience in healthcare. Curious just to ask you what you think about AI in healthcare, and like where do you see the most potential and the biggest risks in healthcare and in mental health as well, kind of like we touched on a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I think AI is and will continue to be transformational, right? We keep talking about precision medicine. Like at the end of the day, we're all different. We all have different, gene sequencing, different biochemistry, right? We even know that if you have an illness, there could be 4 possible drugs that might help you. Then you have to figure out the right dosage. So which drug, which dosage, and AI can be an invaluable tool to help doctors and nurses process more of this personalized medical information to make those kinds of decisions. We can also talk about, the operational efficiencies. I'm sure we'll all experience having to wait a long time for care, even with an appointment, all these things. The risk side, look, we always worry about it's going to make a mistake, right? And for some people, you can't assuage that. The AI is never going to be perfect, and we have to accept that. The goal, though, is not for the AI to be perfect. The goal is the person using AI, the doctor using AI, is more accurate than just the doctor or just the AI by themselves. And that's what we tend to see. I have to find a new example because apparently people don't play chess anymore. But
Hmm.
if you're a human player playing against an AI chess player, your odds of winning are 1 out of 1 million, right?
Whoa.
But we've seen that when you pair a human chess player with an AI chess player, and you play against just another AI chess player, that human AI team wins 9 out of 10 times. AI, look, it's got strengths. Some of the strengths surprise us, but that doesn't mean we're worthless as people. There's a lot of things we're actually much better at AI: creative thinking, handling first kinds of situations, things that require a level of instinctual thinking. So you want to really blend. This is what we call hybrid intelligence. You want to blend the strengths of human beings and augment that with the capabilities of AI. Right, take the best of both worlds and mesh that together. Right, that's where work is actually going. I know a lot of people are freaked out: is AI going to take my job? But if you actually look at what's happening, it's the person using AI that's taking your job, not the AI itself. And so, in particularly for medicine, given the sensitivity and the need for care, that's where we really have to try and focus on. We have to can't worry about perfection, never going to exist, but we have to get more comfort, more truth and trust in the technology so that doctors and nurses feel more comfortable leveraging some of the insights from AI as part of their decision making process and treatment of care.
Good insights. Yeah, I think there's still a lot to come in healthcare, but it seems like that's an industry that's really going to be is being affected and is going to be very affected into the future. So
We all need healthcare.
yeah, yeah, it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there to for AI to help, but it's inspiring to know that at least for now, teaming up with AI, we're more powerful. It's not alone. It can't take over the world yet.
I think it's too much work to run the world. I think AI is happy just being a partner, support us.
Yeah, they probably don't want any of that. I don't want any part of
Got the
the.
inside scoop. Nice. Awesome. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next section then. So, this section is where humanity meets technology. So, based on your experience, Neil, what themes do you see emerging about where AI makes the greatest difference in our lives? Maybe, yeah, let's focus on the good here.
There's a lot here. I mean, I think we all secretly long for the day we have our own AI concierge or AI assistant
Hmm.
to deal with a lot of those tedious tasks.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah,
We're actually not too far away from that happening. I'm always starting to see little bits of this. I think by 2030, a brand will have their AI sales agent trying to convince your AI assistant to buy a product. So that'll be a little trippy. But one of the things we're really seeing as an outcome from AI these past 15 years now is that AI has actually helped us become more human. I know that sounds a little strange and counterintuitive, but that's what we've learned. That it's not just helping free up some time so we can do more yoga and go hiking more and some of these other things that we definitely need. But AI can only do what we teach it, right? And so we have to think about some of these things, and it's become a lot of self exploration, self reflection. There's a research project in Africa called Loving AI, not what people think, right? But their goal was, could we teach an AI system, whether it's a robot or a chatbot or an avatar, whatever it may be, could we teach an AI unconditional love? Right? The goal being like, I think 40% of the world suffers from moderate to severe loneliness. Just create a safe space, not a replacement for human relationships, but a safe place where people always have somewhere to go. They can kind of develop their skills. They can, try and develop those human relationships. But what is unconditional love? What does that mean? Jess, Mario, if I ask you that question, I am right now, how do you define unconditional love?
only
Let's
something a
say like,
mother can provide to a crazy son like me. My mom is a good
yeah,
example.
Shout out to Mario's mom.
Yeah,
yeah.
she's a good one.
I would say just love, that's freely given no matter what. no matter the circumstance.
Well, those are good definitions, right? How does an AI understand what those things mean?
Great question. You have to tell it to it.
Well, that's the thing. You have to figure out a way to effectively quantify unconditional love. And so
Mm.
we're sitting here thinking about that, like how do you do that? But then you start thinking about, but then is there conditional love? What would that mean? And then are there different kinds of love, right? You got the love between two spouses, parent and child, friends. So there's all these different things. And so as we're kind of diving into this, it's not so much just trying to build this AI system, it's like a really deep reflection on what it means to be human. And that's what we're really finding as we're trying to do some of these things. We're forced to think about how do you teach something that doesn't understand the basic concepts. It really makes us think about what does it really mean to be human. And as a result, we're seeing that AI is actually helping us become more human in that regard.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great, positive aspect of it. Yeah, I think, I don't know. What do you think? I guess for me, this is a reflection on my end. Like, I'm really big on self love, and I feel like the more love that you give to yourself, the more that you can spread and share the wealth with others. So, what would that look like? Like, can we teach AI self love to love themselves, and then they can help us better? I don't know. I think it's, I don't know. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that. That was just my brain speaking.
It's a great question, Jess. I don't know is probably the correct answer at the moment, but that's the thing, right? Does a machine need love? It doesn't feel some of these things. We saw, was it almost 7, 8 months ago, OpenAI released a new version of ChatGPT that was very like subservient, right? That's a great idea. And people hated it, right? Right. And so sometimes we don't even know what connects or resonates with people. So how do we teach that even to a machine? And I think that's what we're going to struggle with unless we actually achieve a self-aware, conscious AI system. A lot of these things are kind of moot. I remember when ChatGPT exploded on the scene because it was publicly made available back in 2023, and people were asking like ChatGPT, "Do you feel any emotions?" And it's like, no, right? Well, what kind of emotions could you feel, right? If you had emotions, and it was interesting to see what it said. It was saying like I would probably feel data envy, right? I'd be jealous of other AI systems that had more access to more data than I did. And it's like that's actually an interesting insight, right? Even though it doesn't feel all these emotions, it can at least translate what it understands people feel and try to apply that to a machine. So
Yeah.
maybe there is a way to figure out self-love for an AI system. It's just we haven't figured out the right training model to do that yet.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's kind of like meta cognition there in a way with the AI kind of thinking about that. But I do like the reflection of like how AI has been helping us, become more human. I think, with this project really truly allowing us to look inward and understand what this definition of love or unconditional love means to us, I think is a great way to self reflect and, you know, become more aware. Yeah. Mario, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's just such a unique way to like look in the mirror, with this very unique technology that is nothing like us but can relate to us. And like you said, Neil, like trying to quantify, like quantifying love, to make it understand. I don't know. Yeah, it's deep. It's definitely in my realm, and it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, some of these are, that's why I say we need more philosopher and artists because some of these things are thought exercises and some things are about the experience. Because I like it. Some of the stuff is like, how do you explain to someone that's blind, since birth, what the color yellow is?
We need Alan Watts to come back and take a gander at the world today and give us his thoughts.
Was there a moment in time or a moment that you saw AI amplify human creativity in a different way?
Lots.
Can you give an example?
uh, you know, there's a lot of work actually going on in the art world, the music world with AI. There's a beatboxer. He started off as Reaps one. I think he's now as Reaps 1000. But when he first was looking at some of this stuff, he was thinking, the human voice really hasn't been disrupted in like 50,000 years. And so he's like, could we do something like that? And he worked with some folks and they developed an AI system. And so it makes obviously some things that, tones and stuff a person can make, but it can also make sounds that no human can make. And so he actually does duets now with his AI system. And it's a whole new set of vibes and music and lyrics and just tones you can never actually capture, right? It's add a whole new dimension into music. There's a guy, Mio, one of the world's greatest mime dancers, also happens to have a PhD in computer science. And, he built an AI system, like an AI dancer. But what he did was he never showed the AI how humans dance. Yeah, so he just taught it about motion and melody and some of these things, but didn't say like you do this or you do that, or just, here's videos of people dancing. So when you watch the AI dance, it does very human-like dance moves, and it does some crazy moves no human can do. And so he actually puts on performances now with human dancers and AI dancers, and it's just mesmerizing.
That's amazing. What
So
is
like
that? What is that one called, or who does that?
Said
that's a
Mia.
guy named Mio. I can't think of his last name right now, but I don't remember what he called his AI system. Man, I'm blanking. But if
I
you
looked it
Google Mio mime dancer AI dancer, you'll probably find it.
up. Okay.
Or ask ChatGPT. Go Sentry.
Yeah. The new Google.
Is the beatboxer is Reaps 1000? Is that like what kind of music is that? Is it just like beatboxing kind of beats?
Yeah, he does a lot of beatboxing. He does have some more traditional kind of like songs and stuff, but he really cut his teeth into beatboxing. And we've seen things like across other art fields and this kind of stuff, sculpture, poetry, you know, paintings, but it's not just like, hey, here's an AI kind of analyzing 1,000 different paintings and coming up with something. They're actually using this to create new forms of art. That's the real cool thing here.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's why I knew I liked you, Neil. 'Cause you like the beats. Awesome. Well, we'll move in, if you're ready, Jess, to the last section. And this is kind of where we look ahead a little bit. So yeah, we're curious like how you think that, we make AI for good something that communities actually feel into the future. In other words, how do we actually implement and take action as a global society?
Well, I'll start off
Any
with
advice or tips for
yeah,
for
I
the normal?
do. So two things, Mario. So one, I'll start with the downer one first, and then the more hopeful one.
Please.
The downer advice, unfortunately, Aristotle said very well that we learn from pain, and I've experienced enough in my own life, and people around me that I know that they don't really change or accept or adapt, let alone adopt some of these things, unless they feel the pain, right? I live in California. We've been in a perpetual drought situation for like 25 years, but I don't see people like water conscious, not like they are in like Australia. In Australia, they've lived where you open the faucet and nothing comes out, complete change their society. So part of it is we need to feel the pain on some of these things before we're going to change and focus on more beneficial good uses. I hate to say it that way. The more hopeful advice, though, I encourage people to still do things. I really believe in the power of micro actions, right? None of us here are going to solve climate change. None of us here by just stuff we're doing in our lives is going to turn around climate change. But working together, we can, right? Even if it's like, what, I'm just going to use a water bottle, usable water bottle, and carry around all the time. Is that going to change things? Yes, right? Just me by myself, no. But if I do that and I share that story with other people, and there's 10 million of us doing that, now we're moving the needle, right? And that's what we forget. And that's why I always encourage people is there are things you are willing to do that will be helpful, beneficial, can create more positive impact. You should do it. Don't think about that you're somebody you're going to solve some of these big things, right? But you should do it, and you should share that story with other people because that might encourage them to do the same thing. And that's how we really move mountains. A lot of people suffer from loneliness. Doesn't mean you have to go figure out an AI companion bot, right? but there are other smaller things you might be able to do or contribute to the teaching of an AI bot or something like that that we can all do that are small steps, but in the aggregate, move the needle. And so I encourage everyone out there, think about one or two micro actions you can take. Forget about AI and all these things, but just towards some goal you feel strongly about. What are one or two micro actions you can take and just do them and tell your story to people?
Beautiful. I'm curious to go back to the pain though. Give me an example of like where you think, like, are you saying you think we need to feel pain in certain areas with AI and it, like, related to its effects on humanity, or what do you mean there?
I think it's sometimes for us that intellectually we might understand something, but emotionally and in practice, we don't accept that until we feel the pain, right? This is a touchy subject given some of the recent suicides, unfortunately, but it's a good example. You think about generative AI, things like ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity. 40% of the use of Gen AI is for mental health items. People asking about loneliness or tips or techniques or what should I do about this, right? And I think a lot of people kind of just accept, well, people need help and all this, but now you've seen that I think there's a dozen cases now where there's one or two AI systems that it seems like allegedly, nothing's been proven, so I gotta say allegedly, all this stuff obviously, that the AI may have encouraged this teenager to commit suicide. That's the kind of pain, unfortunately, I'm talking about. Now it's kind of like, oh, okay, wait a second. What are teenagers doing on this? And then what are parents doing, right? They learn about some of these things. If they're monitoring, they go then back to the same AI system and said, well, hey, my kids looking up, we're asking for information about this. What should I do, right? That's the problem. Sometimes it's just the conversation between two people might be more beneficial, but we don't accept that sometimes we don't accept that until we feel the pain. I'm not saying everyone's like that, but for
Yeah.
some people, the change doesn't happen until they feel the pain.
Right. Yeah. I mean, with any change, there's a lot of pain, and this is the biggest change I think I might go through in my lifetime. It's a good, I don't know if it's a warning, but just kind of like just bringing awareness to that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Wonderful. Well, I think he answered my next question, Jess. So we can probably just go to the last section and wrap it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you gave some great advice, to our listeners of like doing micro actions and really understanding, what impacts you can make in your community around you. And that can then lead to changes on a global scale. Do you have any other insights? If you could leave this episode today with our listeners, with one more kind of takeaway, do you have one that you can share?
Yeah, so I'll tie it back to my book, AI Activation Code.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing really centers around the journey, and it's not just the journey of the organization; it's the journey of the people. Each one of us, we're all on this AI journey. You know, Gen AA or Gen Alpha and the future generations are basically growing up in a world where AI has always existed, right? This AI wave we're in, you can be the driver. You don't have to be the passenger, and that's what I would encourage people. You don't need to be a technologist. You don't need to be a roboticist. You don't need to be any of these things, but you have to understand just some of the basic capabilities, but understand how to apply that in your domain. The Mark Zuckerbergs, the Elon Musks, they're not working on your stuff. They don't know the challenges of a doctor or a marketing analyst or a nonprofit CEO, right? The only people who are going to build tools and solutions to help those areas are the doctors, are the marketers, are the nonprofit CEOs. And so you don't have to feel like that the wave's coming, I'm not going to get crushed by it. You can ride that wave. It's not that hard. There's lots of great books. Mine, for example, sorry for the shameless plug,
No,
that
that was our next.
can help you do so. Just learn these foundational things so you can figure out how to use these tools for the benefit of your organization and your community. Take
Yeah.
take,
Definitely.
take that up, take that challenge, and be the person that moves things. Be that driver.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're so big on agency on this podcast, because I truly, and Mario as well, truly believes, we are the creators of our lives, and like we can truly make a difference if we know that we have that power, So it's encouraging. let's not just, let life happen to us. Let's create our life.
Very empowering. It's making me not feel so bad about trying to start so many businesses from my chats with GPT, driving myself crazy. But I'm like, all right, let's keep it going. So thank you. Yeah, you once again have gone right into our next section, which is shameless plug for yourself. Tell us about any other projects, or if you want to shout out your book again, tell people where to get it, or just where to connect with you at.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully everyone's somewhat interested in reading the books. Own the AI Revolution and the AI Activation Code. They're available at your favorite bookstores, obviously at Amazon or online retailers. If you want to check out more of my work with Future View, what we're doing with cognitive science, you can visit our webpage, which is acsilabs.org. And then if you're just interested in like what some of the more recent things are, and I always hear people asking for resources, I have a great LinkedIn newsletter and a Substack called Disrupting the Box. So it talks not just about AI, but other emerging technologies, and it gives playbooks and other tactical things that you can use for your organization. So feel free to check that out. And if you have any questions or you want to bounce an idea off, you can always go to my website, which is just my name, neilsahota.com. And there's a contact form in there where you can reach out to me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for working on so many incredible projects that our listeners can go to for resources.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks for giving me a forum to share, Jess and Mario.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. All right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap it up then. I guess, Neil, to add more to it, thanks again for joining us today on Beyond Evolution. I think, the insights that you shared with the knowledge that you have in IBM and your ASCI or ACSI?
ACSI, I know it's a mouthful.
CSI? Yeah, it's okay. I think it's just amazing platforms that can really get people immersed, into this technology, and you can see the benefits of that technology on their personal lives. So I think that's super impactful, and it's really making, huge changes and huge strides in this world and in the positive and right direction. So thank you for all that you do, with AI and technology and, community, and sharing all that with us today.
My pleasure. And if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Love it.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you, Neil.
Awesome. To wrap it up, as we always do, so AI can sometimes feel overwhelming, but today's conversation really showed that it can be a force of resilience, empathy, and growth. So just for everyone out there listening, keep learning, keep evolving, but also allow yourself to just be. Thanks so much.